Welcome to the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Blond, and this is Season 2, Episode 10 of the Overrated Experience. You can follow the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast on Twitter at Overrated EXPER2, and also on Instagram and Facebook at Overrated Experience. Join, follow, comment, be part of the team. Is that an inspirational speech? If you haven't listened before, this podcast is going to focus on sports betting. It's going to focus on sports news. Predominantly at this time of year, it's NFL. And we'll try to get you 2 shows a week. One, for example, episode 9, that was posted on Tuesday, that if you haven't listened, please download, talks about our picks against the spread leading into week 5 of the NFL. And then this podcast is going to predominantly look at over-unders and also prop bets leading also to week 5 of the NFL. Now, I'm going to go off on a tangent and a rage about another sport locally impacting us, and that is the Toronto Blue Jays, who recently got swept in their wildcard series against the Minnesota Twins. So if you haven't joined us before, again, we normally focus just on football at this time of year, but I can't let the opportunity to go by to blow off some steam about the disgust I have for this team and how they went down in flames just a few days ago. So, if you're not a baseball fan, or you are a baseball fan, you may or may not know the Toronto Blue Jays had a wild card series against the Minnesota Twins. They lost both games, the best 2 out of 3. 3 games would have been played in Minnesota because Minnesota won their division, and they are the team that would have played all games at home, which I'm fine with because it gives more value to winning your division or having a better record. So I'm cool with that the Jays' still expectation was to win this series. All year, this team that coming into the year has the known firepower at the plate, it went south this year. Runners in scoring position was a problem for 162 games. The number of times in the same story over and over that runners left in scoring position, not capitalizing, clutch 2-out hits on a consistent basis. This was the theme of the Toronto Blue Jays. This team backdoored their way into a wild card spot. They got the help from Seattle, Texas, and Houston, who had to play each other each for the last couple weeks, which allowed the Toronto Blue Jays to sneak into the wild card spot. It's not like they busted the door open and they're celebrating like dipshits with champagne because other teams helped them out. So that's a flag to me, 1. 2, if you watched game 2 of the series against the Minnesota Twins where the Blue Jays were eliminated, or the story and the heat around the city is about the decision to remove pitcher Jose Barrios from the ballgame in the 4th inning. Jose Barrios, if you watch the first 3 innings, he's not been consistent all year. He's pitched okay. But if you watch those first 3 innings, he was dealing. He had 5 strikeouts in 3 innings. The Twins were not over him at all. If you were watching, and I would hope that the manager at the dugout is looking at the fucking game, because obviously something's off here, that I guess Ned from Analytics met with John Schneider and probably Ross Atkins before the game and said, hey, the computer, Ned's here with the PowerPoint that tells you that soon as Barrios gives up any runners in this range of the game, maybe the 4th inning, just like it happened, you're going to go to the bullpen because you're going to bring in Kikuchi. Kikuchi's had a strong bounce back year, but he's not your savior. If you were watching this game, and I'm hoping John Schneider did, and the decision came up where now's the opportunity, do I follow Ned's analytics? Ned from Analytics, like you probably see him 3 times a day, hyped up on coffee, probably never goes outside, probably bald, half-shaven beard, just worried about charts and blah, blah, blah. Ned, you should have told Ned to shove his PowerPoint presentation up his ass because we're going to keep Barrios in. Because what my eyes are telling me is that he's dealing. And gives us our best chance to win, especially a team that can't friggin' hit. You can't have a clutch hit. So the decision was made based on the analytics. He walks the leadoff hitter in the 4th. Here comes John Schneider, pointing his left hand to bring in Kikuchi. And now here's one problem I have. If John Schneider had a predetermined game plan that this was going to happen, if he had the ability to say, no, we're not going to go to the game plan and I'll have to justify this later, and chose not to, fired, get him out of there, he's done. He doesn't have big boy pants to make a decision, then he's not the right manager for a team that's expected to make a playoff run. You need a manager with big boy pants, okay? I don't know what he's wearing because it was a garbage move. So they come out, take out Barrios, who's dealing 5 strikeouts in 3 innings, 1 walk. And then Kikuchi gives up a base. The bats are the problem. The bats have always been the issue. Not scoring enough runs, not having enough clutch hits. But that one single change in the game is a fireable offense for a manager. Fireable offense to a GM if he signed off and this is the way we're going to do this. That analytics, although valuable to help make decisions, shouldn't be the only non-negotiable pathway to strategize victory in a game. That's like me trying to cross the street and not using my eyes if a vehicle's going to run a red light or not. I'm going to assume based on analytics when the red light is there, all vehicles will stop. So if I follow the Blue Jays, pathway to success, I'm assuming that everything is going to go to the letter of the law, and that one-off situation where somebody looked down and didn't see a red light, that's never going to happen, right? Or if you're driving, that nobody's going to cut you off or nobody's going to slam on their brakes. That's never going to happen because that's not the rules of the road. Your eyes got to friggin' tell you what decisions to make. And it's a fireable offense. Schneider's got to go. Atkins is go. He's the general manager. Mark Shapiro's not going to go because his baby is renovation of the Rogers Center. But by the way, which looks great, but it's going to weed out anybody, bringing their 4 kids that lives in a middle class or worse economic bracket. They're trying to make a courtside experience and exorbitant ticket prices for sitting closer, even though it looks great, no question. But don't expect to be going to the majority of the population of a city of over 3 million being able to afford to go to not just one, but multiple games in a 162-game season, okay? So let's just not kid ourselves with what that's about. But he's not going to go anywhere. And they're going to justify that the analytics said this and that. Fired, get rid of them, it's done. So there's my 2 cents. There's my rage, and maybe this has made me feel better. Maybe I can move on to the postseason and see what the Jays do to, again, just like the Leafs in Toronto. It's great. We're going to go through a whole offseason. They're going to make moves, and then it's not going to be until later in this time next year where we know if it's been successful or not successful. That's the tough part, okay? So thanks for bearing with me. We're going to steer back to the NFL. And again, this is the over-under props, undies, okay? This is exactly the podcast you want to be with. So I'm just going to share some records so far. Right now, as far as spreads, and please listen to the Tuesday version of episode 9 of the Overrated Experience. We're 58.1%, 36-26 with 1 push, which has been pretty successful. We had a hot week of 12-4. So I encourage you to see what we got for this weekend. Over-unders. Man, we were in 500. Some were good, some were bad. We were 3-2 last week. Right now for the year, we're 10-10. And then props were 54.3%. And that's down. We had a 2-5 record last week. I went off in a tangent here. I was talking about making sure that you and us don't overthink it and, take the guys that produce on a week-to-week basis. And that was Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and both didn't meet their props. So I apologize for that, but I don't apologize for that because that's the plays to make. And I'm going to go back there again. So get ready. Get that pencil out. I'm going to go to the well once again because these are the guys that make impacts each week. They may have an off week or the game plan may not dictate that they get the yards, but that doesn't happen on a consistent situation. So we're going to go back to the well on that. Well, let's kick it off on their over-undies going into week 5. And I'm going to kick it off in Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Baltimore is a 4-point favorite. It's a divisional matchup. I think a lot of people are expecting a tight, game here, like a field goal, Justin Tucker type situation where he's going to have 3 field goals. I don't think so. I think the Steelers are in trouble. I don't think they've given up 300-yard passers in the last 2 games, and they're a bit of a mess, right? So I like Baltimore to put up some numbers here. Over 38, I think, is too low. I think they'll put, they'll get some turnovers. They'll score a few tutties, touchdowns, if you don't know the short term on that. And or their defense will at least have one turnover or one key play where Pittsburgh, scores a cheap touchdown or two. So 38, I'm going to take the over. Minus 108, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. All right. Now, here's one we're going to go undies on. So put those tighty whities on. We got New Orleans taking on New England. So far this season, New Orleans has scored 20 points once out of 4 games. They have they have weapons. But their quarterback is garbage. And I thought Derek Carr was going to come in and actually do something. But he seems to not realize that he has weapons that he needs to work around and not. He's got to get the ball in, the Thomases and the, Olave. I'm saying that right. Kamara, Olave, receiver. I'm butchering the name there. And he's not doing that. And why they let him start last week when he has a bum shoulder, I don't get it. I mean, again, I'd rather go with Jameson Winston and let's see what happens. He'll throw 5 touchdowns, but give up 4 picks, but you might actually win a ball game. So I like this game to go under New Orleans and New England. And I see, they got torched last week. I don't even know if Mac Jones is starting or Billy Zapp's going to start, but this looks to me like a field goal type game, stalled down in the red zones, both teams, and settling for field goals. So I like it under 39.5, minus 110. Kansas City, Minnesota. This should be a shootout. Kansas City, Minnesota. Minnesota can't stop anything. Like, I don't even know what comparable to say it. I mean, they barely got by Carolina. They put the ball up in the air, though. So if they're going to lose and give up 50 points, they're going to put 40 points on the board. Kansas City, I don't think is going to have the pushback that, let's say, the Jets gave them after the second quarter, where Mahomes just didn't have, a game that you normally see from him because the Jets takings are off for 300, maybe 400 yards in this game. So look for this game to go over 52.5. I don't think you could sit there and say, hey, I'm going to take a Minnesota-Kansas City game under. This is a game that there's going to be points, and you might as well ride the idea that this will be like a 60 to 70 point ball game. All right, Jets, Denver, over under 43.5. Now I'm banking the over on this one if Zach Wilson plays anything like he did against the Kansas City Chiefs in any form or fashion, getting the ball into the hands of those receivers and Breece Hall in the backfield. If he has any sort of success against a Denver D that's not that great, then I see this game going over 43.5 in Denver and the Broncos putting up some points. So 43.5, I'll take the over. Jets, Broncos. And the game of the week, Sunday nighter, Dallas. I don't see San Francisco taking the foot off the gas in any form or fashion. Like when when they run you over, they back up and run you over you again. They feed Christian McCaffrey. Like there's got to be some bonus clauses in his contract that state that I need the ball every 2 seconds. They have so many weapons. And because it's not a playoff game, I do see Dallas showing up and being competitive, at least for this game, putting points on the board. So even if the 49ers don't slow down, they do not slow down. So 45 points, I don't think is too dramatic to overcome, and I like the over. So for our 5 picks this week, we got Baltimore, Pittsburgh over 38, New Orleans, New England, the Battle of the News, under 39.5, KC, Minnesota, over 52.5. We have New York Jets in Denver Broncos, over 43.5, and over in the Dallas, San Francisco game. Oh, by the way, if you guys watched the Thursday nighter, the Bears dismantle the Commanders, I will say, it shows the importance of a top receiver. DJ Moore, 3 touchdowns. This guy, he was fantastic yesterday. He was a difference maker. Justin Fields looked good. Hey, he looked poised. He looked like the game slowed down for him, and he got the protection he needed at points of the game where he could make big throws, big first downs. They looked like a team that was not there the first 4 weeks. That was a completely different team. The Commanders, they're blah. Like they're nothing. Like there's nothing there. They'll go in next week or the week after and have a big win or stay in a ball game. But Sam Howell's your quarterback. Ron Rivera's your coach. And you got a lot of weapons. Like their defense should be lights out. The number of first round picks on that defensive line. Come on, there's something wrong. They need to clean house and start over again because what they're doing is not even bad enough to get a top 3 pick, and it's not good enough to be a significant Super Bowl threat. So they're in the middle, they're in the wrong spot, and they need to go. They need to make changes. All right, that's that about that. We're going to go on to props. So props that I like this week, I got 6 props that I like a lot. All right. So 7 actually. I like the New Orleans Saints. I'm using Bet365, by the way, the numbers there. So Bet365, the New Orleans Saints, New England Patriots. Like I said, the Saints have troubles scoring points, scoring touchdowns. And I like the 3-way total under 20 for the team total for the New Orleans Saints. That's minus 110. And because they suck, right? And if they somehow go to Jameson Winston, I think that changes. But if the plan is to stick with Derek Carr, under 20 is the play. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Lamar Jackson passing yards, 199.5. I like the over, and here's why. It's not a lock. 2 out of the 4 weeks that Lamar Jackson has hit 200 plus yards or more. But where I'm going with this is that the Steelers have given up the last 2 games 300-yard passers. So I think that the Ravens will have to go to the air to move the ball. I know that a big part of their game is Lamar and team on the ground, but I think they'll have to go to the air more. And they have, you got it, and you bring all these free agents and stars in. You have to share the ball, and you have to establish Lamar Jackson as a passer, and you can't let him take too many hits because if he goes down, your season's over. So I like that over 199.5, minus 110. Houston, Atlanta, CJ Stroud. I'm going to ride the CJ Stroud bandwagon here. Over 246.5 passing yards. Out of the last 3 games, he's had 280 or more. He had 280 2 games ago, but 300 the last, 2 out of 3 games, 300, 280 for the last one. He's not slowing down. I can't see why CJ Stroud still would not get the balls in his main players' hands and surpass the 246.5. Tennessee, Indianapolis. This is, to me, a no-brainer. I know Jonathan Taylor, running back, superstar running back, is back and will be in this ball game. But if you look at Anthony Richardson, rookie quarterback, he has scored 4 touchdowns himself in his last 3 starts, right? And I know you got Jonathan Taylor, you're going to hand the ball off, but why would you go against a formula that is obviously successful? You cannot stop a quarterback of his athleticism and his size when that ball's on the 1-yard line. Why would you, you're going to still have Richardson, big part of his game, and that's going to include walking into the end zone for a touchdown. So if you give me plus 120 that Anthony Richardson is going to have an anytime touchdown, I'm going to take it. All right? I think that's an easy one. And obviously, you could go crazy. I'm not going to put it on the podcast that multiple touchdowns or first touchdown. I would leave that to you to make that decision, but I'm going to promote and take the anytime touchdown, Anthony Richardson, quarterback for the Colts, plus 120. All right, we move on. The New York Giants take on the Miami Dolphins. The Giants are in trouble. Slapped in this game. Like the Miami Dolphins coming off that loss against Buffalo, and they tend to share the ball. If Tyreek Hill, only had 58 yards last week, they're going to make sure he gets 120 yards this week. They don't screw around. They make sure to take care of their people. And I don't think this week is going to be any different. I'm going to, again, go back to the no-brainer, even though it didn't happen for me last week, the Tyreek Hill over 91.5 receiving yards. Kansas City, Minnesota. I told you this game's going to be a shootout, and guess what? I'm going to go back to the again, and it didn't work out last week, but I will take my chances at Justin Jefferson, which is a high total of receiving yards, 104.5, minus 110, but I will take the over. You guessed it. Remember, it's called the overrated experience, not the underrated. And last but not least, the game of the day, San Francisco hosts the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott. If this is the playoffs, he'd probably throw $120 and give up 2 interceptions. But it's not the playoffs. It's a Sunday nighter. He's going to get the Cowboys fans hope. He's going to throw for 300 yards. And I only need him to throw for over 241.5. I'm taking the over in Dak Prescott's passing total, again, 241.5. Even if they're chasing, he's got to put the ball in the air to his weapons. Even if they take the lead, it's not like you can run the ball and kill the clock against the 49ers. They will crush you. They will keep coming. All right, and you got to keep moving the ball. So I think at no point in the game will Dak Prescott be just handing the ball off. At 241.5, it seems kind of low to me. And that's it. That's where you have it. That is the Overrated Experience, Season 2, Episode 10, props. And over undies, along with a little bit of Blue Jay rants going on from this perspective. And I hope you enjoyed it. For the Canadians out there, enjoy your Thanksgiving. I will talk to you again. The pleasure was all yours, of course. And we're over and we're out. Bye-bye.